Hello everyone, welcome to Dnyanadeep Academy. In this UPSC Simplified series, we are going to discuss one more question from previous year geography. Now, in this particular question, we have been asked about tropical cyclones. So let us see what is the question. Question reads that tropical cyclones are largely confined to South China Sea, Bay of Bengal and Gulf of Mexico. Why? So you have to provide an answer on specific location of tropical cyclones. So let us see the locus of the question. So locus of the question is cyclone. So we have to answer, or we need to know a lot of details on cyclones. And what we have to focus? We have to focus on the location part of the cyclone. So we'll see how to address this particular part. Now coming to introduction, when it comes to introduction for this particular question, your introduction can be based on definition. Now what can you define here? Simply you can define tropical cyclone in this particular question, right? So you can say whatever these tropical cyclones are, these are low pressure systems, right? So at the central at the center of this particular system, there is a extremely low pressure and there is a high speed wind. So that can be your approach while starting for this particular question. Then there can be a fact based introduction. Now a lot of candidate may choose to have a fact ki see in Bay of Bengal this year so and so cyclone has arrived, right? Or people will give number ki in Bay of Bengal or all across the world these many cyclones hit and so on and so forth. So that can also be one of the fact, right? My personal suggestion will be go with the definition based introduction, because now fact based introduction is anyway not going to connect with the question. So that will have a very irrelevant start sometimes, and that is why if we start with definition of tropical cyclones, that will be better. Also in that particular part add some facts such as speed of wind which we find in tropical cyclone, right? And this way you can have a combination of definition plus fact in your introduction. So my introduction is very simple. I'm not trying to be very fancy, because I have to address scientific explanation regarding the location of cyclone. Fine. Now having introduced with the definition, I will move on to the body part of this particular question. In body part, I have first part as the condition for the formation of cyclone. Now you would be wondering कि why I am going to address this condition वाला part. तो इसमें मुद्दा यही है कि अगर आपको ट्रॉपिकल साइक्लोन के लोकेशन को समझना है, ठीक है, what you need the conditions. You need to understand those conditions, under what condition these tropical cyclones form. Now by its name it is very obvious that tropical cyclones form only in the tropical regions, but then there are certain conditions. Now here I am only concerned about two conditions. I will definitely explain all the conditions, whatever conditions I require. I am going to explain it here, but my conditions which I am more bothered about, these are only two conditions. Condition number one is that of temperature. I will say that see, it requires 27.5 degrees Celsius of temperature. And another important condition I am going to address here is that this particular system will require Coriolis force for its formation. ठीक है, तो मैंने यहाँ पे सारी कंडीशन लिखी है, but I will highlight these two conditions just to address the location wala part. Now in this particular part, when it comes to location, I will say, you see, tropical cyclones. So I'll also draw one map. I'll say that tropical cyclones are largely located in the South China Sea, Bay of Bengal and Gulf of Mexico, right? Now do you find any parallel? The first parallel I am finding here is all are located in northern hemisphere. Fine. all are located in the region of tropics, nowhere around the equator. Also, all of these, or rather let's take out Bay of Bengal, but look at the South China Sea and Gulf of Mexico. This is what? This is my western part of the continent, right? Now, why we have a very specific location, that is South China Sea, Bay of Bengal and Gulf of Mexico? The first reason here we have to address is, we will say these are the only region where we have temperature which is above or well above 27 degrees Celsius. If you are able to recall exact temperature in these particular areas, that is good. If you are not able to recall the temperature, even that is good. But my approach is what? I am first addressing the temperature वाला point. तो मैंने यहाँ पे बता दिया कि देखिए कंडीशन क्या थी, 27 डिग्री सेल्सियस या उससे ज्यादा टेम्परेचर रिक्वायर्ड है. Where I am getting this temperature? I am getting this temperature not mostly here in this particular part or this particular part. I am not getting much of a sea temperature. There is a reason, right, why I have all these regions in north and not much of cyclonic activity. There is cyclonic activity in southern hemisphere also, but there is not as much of frequency we find in southern hemisphere as we find in northern hemisphere. So in the southern hemisphere, because of absence of land, temperatures are on a lower side. We have most of the formations in northern hemisphere because there is a dominance of land. So this is my one argument for 27 degrees Celsius or higher temperature. Another important point I will highlight, see this Gulf of Mexico or Bay of Bengal, South China Sea, they are located on the western margins of the oceans, and western margins of the oceans are warmer because of warm ocean current. So I will also address this particular point, that we have higher temperatures. Regarding Bay of Bengal, I will say, see, Bay of Bengal also has higher temperature since it is a landlocked landlocked water body, and that is why we have more cyclonic formation in this particular part. So that is my one address regarding the temperature part. Another important issue then I will highlight here is, see, we do not have any cyclonic activity near equator. It is well above equator, as Coriolis force is higher as compared to the equatorial region. So in all these areas, now one condition is temperature, another condition is the presence of Coriolis force, and that is something which is giving rise to the tropical cyclones, be it in Gulf of Mexico, Bay of Bengal and South China Sea. So that is how you are supposed to construct your answer. Unless you put the conditions for formation of cyclone, you are not likely to explain its location, right? So that is something you need to be mindful. Now moving to conclusion. Conclusion is very simple. You can simply put what impact these cyclones have on human life, and you can also talk about the preparedness which we should be having for this particular situation. So this is very simple question. 2014 में आया था ये question. It was somewhere for 5 marks or so. So very short and simple, crisp answer you are supposed to write, and you are supposed to address all these parts in this particular question. So see you again in next session. Have a good day.